Hey, welcome back. So I'm glad you're here with us again on our next episode of Leverage KUDWA, and I'm sure you're interested in the topic, how to lead and manage a team divided. You know, the world's changed and we all have to manage remote workers. And even though lockdown might end, some people might be returning back to the office, but that might not be true for everyone. I'm going to share with you something we've been working on for a number of years, how to learn principle and key ideas, how to lead and unite a team that sometimes becomes fragmented. Right at the end of the video, we're also going to have a special bonus. So my name is Lorenzo. Welcome to Leverage KUDWA. If this is your first time on this channel, then I want to let you know what our promise is. This channel is designed for managers, leaders, executives, even entrepreneurs. It's really about helping you lead yourself and lead others. You know, no business can survive without people. If we know how to not just organize our people, but how to motivate them, inspire them, and help them unleash their best talent and potential, we can deliver great results. So a couple of things that we're going to be doing on the channel over the next few weeks and months is learning how to implement the principles of team performance and collaboration. We're also going to learn the fundamentals of how to redesign a engaging performance management system. I'm going to try to rectify the misunderstanding that happens often in the relationship between reward and recognition. And then finally, how do you increase drive and motivation in those people you lead, those contributors that you rely on, and how do you help them achieve the business results that you are all here for? Stick with me as we introduce Leverage KUDWA. Do you miss those good old days, coming to the office, finding everyone at the desk obediently tapping on their keyboards, answering phones, as you, supreme leader, lords it over the office workers? Everyone fighting to give you feedback, some even willing to make you coffee. And then you have the hope that someone is nominating you for the Sunday Times Best Boss of the Year award. Stop dreaming. We know what the reality is. About 2 months ago, Mike arrived at 7:30 and he's always early, but then he drops his bag, hits the balcony and takes his 20-minute smoke break before the day even begins. At least he's the one that arrives early. Most everyone only arrives at 8:10, straddling slowly into the workstations, leisurely making coffee and then catching up on last night or the weekend's gossip. The one thing that you appear to have is that 9 a.m. ops meeting that no one dares be late for. And it's not because you're a bad boss, but how do you get people motivated without nagging and pleading them to just do their tasks to get the job done? Aren't we here all for the same reason? You have to deal with Tandeka, and she's a good worker, but she keeps complaining about her pay being too low. Then there's Paul and Sharon, who's always bickering and fighting. I wonder what the problem is. And it's hard to sit down with both of them because they're always fighting. Then there's Sanele, the head of Shek and compliance, whom, to be honest, no one in the office really likes. She acts like a policeman without any real authority. No one listens to her. She does try her best, but it appears that her objectives are misaligned with what we really do around here. And then, as I'm going through the examples of people that I'm mentioning, and I'm sure you can relate to them. Oh, by the way, their names have been changed just, to protect the innocent. And I say that because the next person I'm introducing is our HR business partner, Jack, who keeps reminding me that the morale of the people is my responsibility and then gives me policies that doesn't make it easy to make anyone happy in this place. Not so long ago, when you try to help motivate people and institute flexi time and remote work policies, you found out that it was only for the privileged few who were responsible. And then bam, March 24th arrived, and without warning and preparation, everyone's a remote worker. All our HR policies disappeared. If you're in this situation, and I'm sure you can relate to my own personal experience, how do you lead a team that now has to motivate themselves? And I'm sure you can relate to me. Now that all the policies that have governed us are thrown out the window. How do you keep a team united? How do you overcome the obstacles that prevents us from operating effectively because we're not all in the same location? And here's the interesting idea. If you understand the principles we're about to share with you today, this will be true to where your team is situated, whether they're remote workers or sitting in the same building, because this is a principal idea. Now, if this is a topic that doesn't interest you, hang around. Maybe there's one or two things you might find interesting. But if this is a problem you'd like to overcome, then I'd love you to stay as I introduce to you something we've been working on for a number of years. It's a model that we call the 6 gears to bash your goals. Now, it doesn't mean bash your people, even though that's what we sometimes feel like doing. This is the 6 gears to bash your goals, and it will help you manage and turn around any divided team, whether they are remote workers or not. As I go through this description, I want you to take note that even though there are 6 gears that we break down, there's a number of other ideas that'll pop up on the left of the screen. Notice that we chose not to introduce this as the 6 keys to achieve your goals or the 6 steps. We use the idea of gears, and perhaps it's a really good analogy. Think about a manual gearbox in the motor vehicle that you drive. You can't go at high speed in gear 1, and you can't pull away in gear 6. Each gear serves a purpose based on your circumstances and your conditions. And so gears gives us the principal idea called leverage. We'll be using leverage or gears as a metaphor to explain situational leadership. And even though some things happen in a sequence, all things that you do as a leader are interdependent and connected to each other. So let's start with gear number 1. Create brave, vision-inspired goals. Now, too many goals will confuse you. You see, this is a neuroscience idea. No matter how hard you believe that you can, neither men nor women can multitask. Our brains are not wired to care for more than one task, activity, or priority at a time. And if you violate that principle called the law of diminishing marginal return, you will suffer the consequences. It's built on another idea that systems have boundaries and limitations, and when you exceed it, the whole system goes out of balance and it impacts your production rate. Let's take the physical body as an example. How many hours can you work and maintain peak performance? Is it an hour? 2, perhaps even 4. Let's assume you're able to work a 20-hour day. At what point does your brain go numb before you fall over and become a zombie? Adding more hours to your workday does not increase your cumulative production capacity. The longer you work, the slower you get. Diminishing return. You get the point? The more goals you add, the less likely you are to achieve any. You know, in my own personal experience, when I was a general manager at a large mill, my boss was adamant that I have 18 objectives on my personal scorecard, and he would measure me against all 18. How can I choose only 2? There is a way to solve this problem, but because we're just doing an overview of the 6 gears, we're not going to get into that right now. So stay with us, because we'll do a deep dive on each gear in follow-up videos. Let's get an overview of gear number 2. Distill and align goals. This means down and across teams, in departments, and even different functions across a wide organization. This gear involves a systems thinking approach, and it considers the impact of violating or working along with principles that govern human behavior. You see, organizational results and team performance is a systems approach idea. Sadly, so many organizations concentrate all their performance management efforts on individual performance evaluation that rarely are aligned across other individuals and teams in the organization. This is a price that you will pay for violating the systems approach to performance metrics. You see, when you measure people in isolation of others, it causes individuals to focus their efforts on their personal performance to the detriment of the team. And here's an interesting idea. Again, a systems impact idea. When you worry about why there's so much team politics, internal negative competition, or even subtle forms of unintended sabotage, and people even blaming each other, which often is called the blame culture. These are all consequences of understanding or misunderstanding the system's approach of performance management. If this sounds familiar to you, if you've seen the ramifications of this on your team, then you know where the problem lies. Another idea to keep in mind is that by nature, we love to work with others. We are social beings. And when the system's design is violated, it causes division, politics, and competition to erupt. Imagine a sports team where the defender will not pass the ball to his striker because his performance evaluation is based only on his defensive metrics. And his performance bonus puts individual success, his success, above the team success. How ludicrous. And yet, we do that often in organizations. This takes us to gear number 3. We have to install a metric that helps govern the right behavior reinforcement. This is about building routines and rituals that reinforces personal responsibility. This is where KUDWA influence is unleashed. So learning the KUDWA framework and understanding the principles on which it is built starts to unleash this thing called autonomy. Now, what is that? Well, it's the idea that people have to think for themselves. And here is where most performance metric systems fail. If you want to change or influence a change in human behavior, then measure the desired behaviors you want. It sounds simple, but it's not. I have to admit, it's not easy. Most of the metric systems we have within our teams or in our organizations are generally automated. But if you want to influence a change in human behavior, then people have to measure themselves and measure their teammates on a regular basis. In fact, you have to build a routine for measuring behavior by the people that you want to measure. Now, that sounds counterintuitive. Why would anyone want to measure themselves and perhaps expose their failures? It is so important, and let's illustrate this again with another example that some of you might recognize. The simple example of weight loss. You see, a goal in weight loss is measured by a scale. That's easy. You step on the scale and you step off and you have the result. Very little effort is required. However, when you think about the behaviors that drive the metrics on the scale, it involves 2 essential behaviors: what you eat and what you expend in exercise. Diet and exercise. Now, up until recently, measuring exercise has become fairly easy. We all have some heart rate monitoring device, an Apple Watch, that help us measure our activity and the intensity of our activity, and that gets recorded. Diet's the problem. Diet requires discipline, not only in the eating part, but also requires manual record keeping. There is no calorimeter that you can wrap around your esophagus to measure what you stuff down your throat. This will require effort and discipline for you to put into place until you can ensure sustainability or until you form a good habit. And then again, it's easy to install a behavior-based metric system as an individual, but it's a lot harder to install this when you have to change the collective behavior of your entire team. I'm not trying to make this sound impossible, because actually, even though it appears really hard, it's not that hard at all. And as we do a deep dive on gear number 3, I'll give you some tips, tricks, and mechanisms to make it easy to measure team behavior and get everyone rallied up and excited on how to do this. And it will overcome some of the politics, not all of it, some of the politics, as you build team morale and team spirit. So this brings us to gear number 4. Gamify and update a dashboard. Now, a dashboard is required because by nature, when we think again about how humans think and feel, all of us love to know whether we're winning or losing. But you see, we shouldn't be competing with each other. We should be competing against ourselves. And when we can install a system where people compete against themselves and not each other, we start to see team spirit rally. Let's illustrate this again and the idea of the importance of this dashboard or scoreboard. Ever seen a sports team play without a scoreboard? What's the enthusiasm level like of the people on the pitch and the spectators in the stands? You know, the moment you remove a scoreboard, energy deflates. People need to know how they are doing. This idea also throws performance management on its head, because often performance management or scorecards are used to deflate people and let them know why they are not deserving of the performance bonus they're about to not get this year. We have to undo this mentality and use scorecards, scoreboards, and dashboards to inspire people to improve And that's a phenomenal idea. Let's move on to gear number 5, implement BASH. Now, BASH is an acronym, and we'll break down that acronym a little later. But essentially, this is a team huddle, a regular meeting where we start to allow autonomy to take its course. It's about releasing people to do what needs to be done, but then holding them accountable to the commitments or promises that they make to the team. But when we talk about accountability, we're not just talking about accountability to the goal or to their tasks. We're also talking about accountability to the standards and values of the team. No one has complete autonomy, but we need to give people some freedom, autonomy, so that they can unleash their best work or effort. You see, as humans, we have a built-in need to determine our own course, to make our own choices, and to be responsible for the outcomes. Of course, in the workplace, this is conditional on the idea that only trained and competent people can be trusted to direct themselves. The only element then up for discussion is the outcome. The process, the methods and means for achieving that goal must be guided by each contributor himself, using his own thinking ability, so that when they succeed, they get the credit. Have you ever been on a team, or have you ever been a contributor to a team, where the boss takes the credit for your great idea? How does that make you feel? Now, if you win the leadership role, think about that impact on the minds and hearts of the people you lead. Now, let's be reasonable. There are standards and boundaries that each contributor may not overstep, such as the company values, legislative, financial, and other reasonable risk and compliance requirements. But inside a reasonable framework, people must have the freedom to decide how to achieve the goal, the methods, the processes. But inside that fence, each contributor must have the freedom to perform. Even on a soccer pitch, there are standards and rules that a player, no matter how skilled he may be, has to comply with or obey. Which means that even though autonomy is a key requirement, no one has absolute autonomy, not even the leader. That's been a mouthful, hasn't it? Let's get to our final gear, gear number 6, celebrate and recognize. Now, this is connected both to the human need of the heart and the neurological need of the mind. You see, as human beings, again, we all need to know whether we're winning or losing. And notice how this is connected to gear number 4. If you don't have a dashboard in place, how can you illustrate whether you're winning or losing? But then when people are winning, they need to know about it. And who's going to tell them? You have to tell them. You see, when people know they are winning, they love the recognition that comes from when the leader tells them how well they are doing. And when the system is designed where everyone can win, you find people excited to celebrate the successes and achievements of the colleagues on their team. This reinforces team spirits and reduces that ill effect we had earlier called politics. You see, when you have a powerful tool that increases the natural collaboration that people need to want to win, you find people start to help each other to succeed. This is where winning culture is born. At this point, I want to say we're not talking about reward yet. We're talking about recognition. Recognizing people's diligent efforts and reinforcing the right behaviors that you want on your team. We'll tackle reward in a future effort because often people are confused between reward and recognition. If you have any questions about the 6 gears to bash your goals or some of the dimensions that we just introduced to you, please put your questions in the comments below. As we research and build on each gear, as we do a deeper dive in future videos, I'd love to answer those questions that you may have. Remember too, I promised you a bonus right at the end. You may have noticed, in addition to the introduction of the 6 gears, we introduce 6 concepts, which we call the 6 dimensions of KUDWA. And the reason for this is KUDWA, as well as the 6 gears, is a principle-based systems approach to govern a change in human behavior. This is true whether you're leading remote teams or not. So you are welcome to install it on your sales team, on your IT team, whether you're leading a manufacturing facility, a bank, insurance company, whether you're the headmaster of a school or a sporting coach. Because it's principle-based and it's systemic in design, it can work everywhere. And here is bonus number 2. I'll be introducing you to some books, and there'll be links in the description below, that helped formulate this framework over the last 20 years or so. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more or doing a deep dive on your own and you love reading, and if you do, I encourage you to read some of these books, then you'll come to understand the principles and systemic approach. And in the book I'm probably most excited about is the very first book I read as a manager, called Maverick by Ricardo Semler. A colleague of mine gave me this book as a gift. Now, I put it down because I hated reading. And then one day I was battling how to motivate people to achieve their goals. And I finally took the courage, picked up the book and started reading, and I couldn't put it down. In this read, I discovered how trust and autonomy unleashes exponential benefits in goal achievement. Oh, I nearly forgot. The book right on the top of my pile here. It's called Creating Winners in the Workplace. What's nice about this book, it's a local book by Dr. Arnold. Again, if you want to understand scorecards or dashboards, there are so many insights and gems inside that book worth learning. Now, if you're not an avid reader, and even though I introduced all of these titles to you, don't worry. We will break down some of the ideas on this channel and make it easier for you to understand and implement in your workplace. Because remember, KUDWA is about the implementation of knowledge to achieve sustainable results. And then our final bonus, we're giving you free access to a downloadable version of the 6 Gears to Bash Your Goals. In the comments below, you will find a link to download a PDF version that you may be able to print and use to familiarize yourself with how to install this system on your team. So again, for the newbies on the channel, what is KUDWA? Well, KUDWA is a twofold idea. It's a framework that helps you to apply knowledge that you appreciate, and it gives you the superpower on how to govern a change in your own behavior first, and then influence a change in the behavior of those around you and on your team. So stick glued to our channel by subscribing and hitting the bell icon. Hi, my name is Lorenzo, this is KUDWA, and we're not just another variant, we are Variant.